On the news, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 set to issue new directives on national response. President Buhari meets state governors, orders close relationship with Presidential Task Force. And Japan slips into recession amid rising cases of COVID-19. A warm welcome to News Now. I am Fidalia Aguncha. It's disappointing news for those who have been looking forward to President Muhammadu Buhari's briefing on the COVID-19 pandemic and measures adopted to address it, as the presidency on Monday announced that he will not be briefing the nation today. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, had on Sunday told Nigerians to expect new directives from the president on Monday. He said since the first 2 weeks of the phased post-lockdown protocol would be ending today, Buhari's next line of action would be to outline new procedures and guidelines for the next phase of the national response. But in a statement signed by spokesperson to the president, Femi Adesina, the presidency said President Buhari, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 will instead brief Nigerians on the next steps. Meanwhile, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu says he's satisfied with the compliance to safety guidelines put in place by the government to check the spread of COVID-19 in the state. The governor, who disclosed this at a media briefing in Lagos, said there was no reason to reimpose any lockdown in the state in the interest of the economy. He said the state government was considering full reopening of the critical sectors of the economy, but would not be pushed in a hurry.
All of the players in the restaurant business, spa business, event centers, entertainment, the malls and the cinemas will go through a form of re-registration and space management. We will be coming to their facility. There will be a regulation that will be coming out, but we'll be supervising and we're coming to their facility to see their level of readiness for a future opening. When that opening will happen in the weeks ahead, I don't know. But we want them to begin to tune themselves to the reality of COVID-19, what their floor spaces needs to look like. Also at our places of worship, as much as possible, we will be going and working with them to see their level of preparedness in the event that we're going to unlock them in future. How well have they spaced out their auditorium, their places of worship? How many people can it take at any point in time? Ensuring that we keep as much space as possible before we begin to see them being ready for that unlocking.
Still in Lagos State, the State Police Command has arrested 1,872 people in the last 2 weeks for violating the lockdown order imposed by the state government. Public Relations Officer for the State Police Command, Bala Elkanah, disclosed this in a statement issued on Sunday. Elkanah said they were charged to mobile court by the command's legal team at the State Criminal Investigations Department, CID, in Yaba. Out of the number, 1,833 accused persons pleaded guilty to the one-count charge against them and were convicted. The remaining 39 accused persons pleaded not guilty and have been remanded in police custody until the next adjourned date for hearing. Elkanah also revealed that 704 commercial vehicles were impounded for violating the suspension order issued by the state governor, while 73 tricycles were impounded for violating the curfew. Let's now move to the northwest. Kano State Ministry of Health has confirmed 64 new cases of coronavirus, bringing the total number of infections in the state to 825. The ministry said 18 patients were discharged and 1 death was recorded on Friday, May the 17th. It added that there were 678 active cases, with a total number of 111 discharged and 36 deaths. Elsewhere in Oyo State, 8 more members of staff of the same company in the state have tested positive for COVID-19. This brings the total number of staff of that company who have been confirmed positive for the coronavirus to 38. Nigeria currently has close to 6,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases, of which 1,594 have recovered and have been discharged. A total of 182 people have, however, died from the illness since it broke out in the country in February 27, 2020. The federal government has impounded an aircraft belonging to a British company, Flirjet, for operating commercial flights into the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, despite the ban on such flight operations in Nigerian airports. Flirjet said it had gotten approval to fly its legacy 6,000 aircraft into the Lagos airport for humanitarian operations, but the Federal Ministry of Aviation stated that the aircraft was not cleared for commercial flight. They noted that the country's airports were still under lockdown to commercial flight operations. The Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority has now begun an investigation into the matter. Most correctional facilities in Nigeria are in poor state and overcrowded, raising concerns that it might be a fatal ground for the transmission of COVID-19, while health experts have been highlighting the possible impact of the pandemic on prisons and inmates. Legal practitioners, on the other hand, have been evaluating measures taken by the government to decongest these facilities. There is more in this report. Over 68.6% of the more than 76,000 inmates in Nigeria's correctional facilities are awaiting trial. Worse still, these custodial centers are stretched beyond their capacities, posing a potent threat to the health of inmates. With the COVID-19 pandemic spreading fast across the country, the current condition of Nigerian prisons has become an issue of great concern.
Presently, the case fatality ratio of COVID-19 is about 3% in Nigeria. If it gets to Nigeria prison in that condition, expect the case fatality to go as high as 20-30%. This is why. Most of them, they have compromised immune system. Their feeding is suboptimal. Part of them, a lot of them are malnourished. The cases of tuberculosis and co in prison is very high. And then these people are clumped together in the most inhumane condition. They are not attended to strictly like other people. So if COVID-19 should enter Nigeria prison, expect a high case fatality ratio.
Authorities have been working to ensure this grim picture does not become a reality. Several state governors have granted pardon to certain categories of prisoners, while Nigeria's Chief Justice Tanko Mohammed recently also directed judges to identify and release deserving inmates within their states. But this legal expert says these moves are only short-term and may not yield the needed results.
A situation where the investigation is wishy-washy and then the court still accommodates adjournment to tidy up such files while the suspects are in remand will congest prisons. A situation where a file is referred to Attorney General's office for advice, and that Attorney General's advice takes eternity to come while the accused person is in custody, we congest prisons. And so until we set up structures to address all of these issues, the CJN statement might just be made in vacuum.
Others have also been preferring long-term measures to address overcrowding in Nigerian prisons.
We must rejig our judicial system to enhance speedy trial and dispensation of justice. Okay, that is one. We must also develop and rework on some of our laws, our legislation, and put timeline on criminal cases. Just like in election petition, as a matter of constitution, we must dispense with an election petition matter within 180 days, which is bound by law. I think that perhaps we need to stretch that into criminal matters so that cases can be decongested.
The categories of inmates who are being released due to the COVID-19 pandemic include prisoners awaiting trial who have spent 6 years or more in custody, those who have no confirmed criminal cases against them, aged inmate, low-risk offenders, and those with less than 3-year term left to serve. Fidelia Aguncha, TV360, Lagos. Regular school activities are now shifting online, with thousands of Nigerian students taking part in virtual learning following the closure of schools due to the coronavirus pandemic. iRead Mobile Library has launched a free learning platform on popular messaging and voice-over application WhatsApp to help students stay busy while schools remain shut. Oyin Adekunle has details in this report.
Out-of-school gatherings for students were regularly hosted by iRead Mobile Library prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, but for now, events like these can no longer take place. Nevertheless, founder of iRead, Fumi Lori, is exploring unthought means to ensure learning continues.
This sound as
With the assistance of 130 volunteers, she now connects with thousands of nursery and primary school students across Nigeria through the WhatsApp platform.
We currently have 4 schools running now. Once it's time for school, we run the school every Monday to Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 12 o'clock. The coordinator for that particular lesson that the children are supposed to have comes into the classroom, addresses the children, requests that they have a show of hand or using an emoji that would make us know that the children are ready for school. Once we have that, the lessons for all the classes are placed on the platform. The platform opens again and the children can send pictures of what it is that they've done and we give them feedback.
Ilori also highlights some of the challenges that comes with this relatively new method of teaching.
Having 256 parents on a platform and all of them want to submit their work is almost impossible. So we're only able to take a few of them submitting. We're currently running another pilot, moving the children to Google Classroom. So with Google Classroom, we still have the volunteers working day and night. It's a lot of work because they need to upload the content. Now, the advantage of the Google Classroom is that it is automated. So once the children are done with their classwork, they receive feedback instantly.
She says this mode of teaching is one that has come to stay and will improve teaching and learning experience in the long run.
When school resumes, what we're going to be seeing is going to be what we call blended learning. All right. And that's what iRead has also been advocating for. We must leverage on technology. We cannot afford to go back to where we're coming from. This is the new normal. Every child has to know how to use technology, and it's not just the children now, it's the teachers. Amongst our volunteers, all the volunteers that we have are teachers, but we've had to train them to be able to manage the new ways of teaching now.
It is still uncertain when learning institutions in the country will be reopened. But Fumi Lori hopes that the government can bridge the gap of internet connectivity so that students and households without internet access will not be completely left out of the new learning experience. Oyin Adekunle, TV360, Lagos.
Let's now move to the foreign scene. Japan dived into its first recession since 2015, according to official data on Monday, with the world's third largest economy shrinking by 0.9% in the first quarter as it wrestles with the fallout from the novel coronavirus. The drop in gross domestic product followed a 1.9% decline in the fourth quarter of 2019 as a tax hike and typhoons hit Japan hard, even before the pandemic shut down most of the economy. The recession is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, and some analysts predicted the Japanese economy would suffer worse as the effects of the coronavirus become clear. Japan has been hit less hard than most advanced economies by the coronavirus, with just over 16,000 cases in the whole country and around 750 deaths. However, authorities were concerned that there could be an explosive spike especially in the densely populated city of Tokyo, and urged people to stay indoor and businesses to shut down. The World Health Organization, WHO, is investigating whether the coronavirus causes some children to develop a rare inflammatory disease. WHO officials said this after health officials in the UK warned doctors that COVID-19 could be causing a rare inflammatory disease condition in children linked to toxic shock syndrome and Kawasaki disease. The society noted that many, but not all, children with symptoms of the new inflammatory disease had been diagnosed with COVID-19.
This syndrome, we're calling it multi-system inflammatory syndrome, is a condition that was alerted to us from our colleagues in the United Kingdom a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. And it's a very rare condition which is causing an inflammatory disease in young children. What we've done with that information is that we've discussed this with our global clinical network, which is a group of clinicians across the world who are dealing with patients for COVID-19, and specifically talking with our pediatricians who are part of that global network. And in doing so, asking who has seen this in their countries, where they have seen it, how often they have seen it, what this syndrome actually looks like, and in doing so, raise the alert among this global network. We've heard of additional reports in a few countries, including the United States, including Italy, learning very we're getting of what this looks like, which is not always the same. And in some children, they've tested positive for COVID-19, but other children have not. So we don't know if this is associated with COVID-19 or not.
We'll take a break here to bring you more stories. Don't go away.
On TV360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
The Constitution is constituent.
Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgments so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country?
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly.
God forbid that I go to join that planet.
TV360, providing clarity to issues.
Welcome back. And away from the COVID-19 pandemic, President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the Presidential Task Force to work closely with state governors. The president gave the directive on Monday at a virtual meeting with some members of the Nigeria Governors Forum. In a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, President Buhari disclosed that the PTF had briefed him on the next steps in the national response to the pandemic. He explained that working closely with governors would bring better harmony in the daunting task of curbing the spread of the coronavirus. The meeting also discussed economic and security issues, amongst others, with the governors commending the president on the leadership and direction he has given the country in combating COVID-19. The federal government has issued a query to Mohammed Bello, Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Science and Technology, over alleged financial misconduct. In a letter dated May 11 and signed by Folashade Yemieson, head of service of the Federation, Bello was alleged to have engaged in acts of misconduct while he was the permanent secretary of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. The permanent secretary was accused of not paying eligible contractors despite the budgetary release of 98 billion naira to the Agricultural Ministry in 2018. He was alleged to have used the entire 2019 first quarter release of 7 billion to pay for the 2018 contracts that were already funded. The head of service said the allegations could lead to the dismissal of the permanent secretary if he is proved guilty. To security now, troops of 130 Battalion have killed at least 20 members of the Boko Haram sect and Islamic State of West Africa Province, ISWAP, in a fierce encounter at the northwestern part of Baga town in Borno State. Coordinator of Defense Media Operations, Major General John Enenche, confirmed this in a statement. He noted that the troops conducted a decisive intercept offensive operation with the support of the Nigerian Army Supercamp in Baga. Enenche explained that the insurgents who were armed with mortars, rocket-propelled grenades and small weapons were on their way to attack villages surrounding Baga before the gunfight took place. According to the military spokesperson, the Chief of Army Staff commends the soldiers for their professionalism and directs them to remain resolute towards eradicating the criminals from the northeast. Let's take a break here to bring you business stories. Don't go away.
How you did? No. Every way, everything.
No feet shake you. You know they read.
Now believe this corrupting. You know fit touch black man. If you like, gather the whole Niger, come together, make the cough. Nothing.
Which one you want?
Give me V&D.
Aha. I beg, get small pieces.
How much you want to give him?
Give me 200. Take your change now, Ruby.
No day town. No worry, that's right.
My people, this coronavirus, na serious matter. You see this virus, so it no get leg. Now we dey waka kurukere, no waka around make the virus for die. No forget say the betterment of our people. Now for your handy day.
This message is from the Akinfade Foundation in partnership with the National Orientation Agency with support from MacArthur Foundation.
Welcome back. We will now join Oyin Adekunle for details from the world of business.
Thank you very much, Fidelia. Total has called off a plan to acquire Occidental Petroleum assets in Ghana, which was conditional on the completion of the acquisition of Occidental's other assets in Algeria, and that's according to the French energy company. The deal was part of an $8.8 billion agreement reached between Total and Occidental to over Anadarko's assets in Mozambique, Ghana, Algeria, and South Africa. While a deal over the assets in Mozambique has been reached, Total said that an agreement over the assets in Ghana fell through after authorities in Algiers blocked Total's acquisition of Occidental's assets in Algeria. The acquisition of assets in Ghana was conditional upon the completion of the Algeria asset sale. And deposit money banks are adjusting their operations and introducing measures for customers to access the banking halls as the lockdown directives ease. While some have been sending lists of branches that will open during the week, other banks say use of face masks have become a mandatory requirement for every customer coming to the banking hall. Some banks have also arranged chairs and canopies for customers to sit down outside while awaiting their turn to be called to enter the hall. GT Bank said in an email to its customers that it was reopening more branches across the country as its banking hours had also been extended from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily. We'll take a short break here and return with Stock Market Review. Insurgency chalked up mild gains today after stocks closed flat last week, and this is as investors took in news of proposed full reopening of economic activities in Lagos. Key market indicators rallied by 70 points to close at actually represented a 0.29% rise, which is 23,941 basis points, and market capitalization of all listed equities also closed the day adding up 30 billion naira to stand at 12.477 trillion naira. Equities that impacted the market rise from its previous flat line were Okomo Oil leading the pack of 25 gainers with a price increase of 5 naira 50 kobo. MTN also traded positive today with a 1 naira 50 naira increase, while Unilever and WAPCO completed the list of 4, selling at 13 naira 70 kobo and 11 naira 35 kobo respectively. And on the flip side, the market saw 13 price laggards today, led by Guinness Nigeria with a loss of 50 kobo. May and Baker, as well as EcoBank Transnational and Fidelity Bank, also performed poorly today. And in summary, trading kicked off with an increased level of activity from investors. Over 330 million units of shares worth 2.9 billion naira exchanged hands in 5,544 deals. Moving on now to international markets. FTSE is off to a golden start this week, nearing the 6,000 mark as lockdowns gradually ease. US stocks are also soaring 3%, and that's after drug maker Moderna announced positive early results from the first human trial of its experimental COVID-19 vaccine. Nikkei is also rising today by 0.48%. And that's it from here. It's back to you now, Fidelia.
Thank you very much, Oyin, for that update. Hong Kong has charged a group of prominent pro-democracy activists to court for taking part in last year's mass anti-government protest that brought the city to a standstill. The group of 15 also includes 1 current and 4 former legislators. 5 of them face a more serious charge of incitement to knowingly taking part in an unauthorized assembly, which carries up to 5 years in jail. The cases were adjourned until June to allow the prosecution to prepare for a move to the district court, and all the defendants were released on bail. Millions hit the street last year for 7 months of pro-democracy rallies sparked by a controversial bill that would have allowed extradition of suspects to mainland China to face trial there. That bill, which was eventually withdrawn, also sparked fight in the legislature before the political unrest exploded onto the streets. Well, La Liga clubs will be starting training in groups of up to 10 people for the first time in more than 2 months, with the league season touted to restart in June. This comes as the government relaxes lockdown rules in Spain, where more than 27,000 people have died from the novel coronavirus. La Liga President Javier Tebas said the start of the next phase in La Liga's return to training protocol is another step toward the restarting of the competition. And that's it on News Now. Many thanks for joining us. I am Fidelia Aguncha. Bye for now.